Oh my gosh. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Just Two Dads with my co-host, Mr. Sean Francis. I am Brian Altunian. And today's guest, I think we say this every week, but today's guest is really special. Very excited to have her on. You know, the date of diagnosis is for some, when it's our children, we look at it like it's some sort of sentence and something that we have to deal with. Sometimes as an adult, when we get it, it kind of becomes eye-opening and we go, oh my gosh, that explains so much. And that is a little bit of the background of what our guest is all about today, because she is a massive cyclone of power and creativity and so many great things. I'm very excited for you to meet our guest here on Just Two Dads. Okay, the cool thing is, and we go live, and when we go live, anything can happen. So hopefully you guys are still hearing me okay. Sean, you got me okay? Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, good. All right, good. I may be locked up, and I'm going to try to fix my technical thing. But while we get there, if you're joining us live on Facebook, thank you for making this part of your day. Please leave us a comment or a message and we'll try to get up on the screen. And if you're catching us after the fact on our YouTube channel, thanks again. Hit the like and subscribe button. Catching us on podcast outlets wherever you are. Thanks for making this part of your listening day. Same goes for the folks down in the U.S. Virgin Islands on WSTX AM radio. Thank you to Sean Hall, who gets us all prettied up. Thank you, Sean, for taking such good care of us. So, without further ado, I'm going to throw it over to Sean to say hello to, and we're going to get into your story and for people to hear about who you are. So hang tight. We're going to get there. Sean Francis, while I figure out my technical stuff, how you doing today, buddy? You all right?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm thankful, blessed, and ready to go. We're at a point, at least I am right now, where I think I mentioned before that academically, that I don't even know if I'm comfortable saying I was academically challenged. I was always physically in a classroom, almost never mentally there. And so my parents spent a lot of time trying to figure out why there was a gap between how I present in conversation and how I do or didn't do academically. And coming from the Caribbean, being in the U.S. Virgin Islands, higher education was a big deal. So I spent a lot of time with tutors, and my teachers tutored me, and just trying to figure out how to navigate. And I never got diagnosed with anything, but I'm at a stage in life where I feel like I might have slipped through the cracks in some way, shape, or form. And I'm meeting and encountering a lot of people that are getting diagnosed with, I shouldn't even say disability, but more of just rewiring and how we process things, and autism being one of those. And our guest today is no exception to that. But what has taken place, which is what I'm so anxious to find out, is she's this whirlwind of talent as a creative individual, a free spirit, a soldier and warrior. And her diagnosis is new, and I get the feeling that it's part of her power as well. But we're going to find that out today. So welcome to Just Two Dads, Em.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here, and I appreciate you guys having me on.
It's
most definitely.
Just a little bit of background for folks. I got a chance to attend an event, a live festival put on by the Yes I Can Unity Group, which is an organization that helps young adults with disabilities get access to information and learn how to basically build a skill set for opportunities in the music and film industry. And last November, they put on this massive concert here in Santa Clarita, California. And honestly, it was kind of an eclectic mix of talent. A lot of OG rappers, Bone Thugs and Harmony, and a few other OGs. And admittedly, not exactly my taste in music, but I got there a little bit early, and I had the benefit of getting a chance to catch Em. And so Em was on stage doing her performance, and a bunch of things hit me at once. First of all, as a girl dad, I'm always about female empowerment. you can see M is beautiful, incredibly talented with a voice that goes 4 octaves, and it catches you, like, it's incredible. Her dancers, the choreography, brilliant, engaging. The music and the lyrics are what kept me hooked. I was so blown away. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. And I had to go up afterwards and meet her, just because, again, as a girl dad, I'm like, I've sent some of her music. We talk about things from anxiety and abuse, and overcoming all of those adversities, and empowering and being a superhero. And so we got a chance to spend some time with her. And then recently she acknowledged her diagnosis. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is such a great opportunity for us to have a conversation, because and by the way, we're going to put her site up on here as well. You definitely want to go to eminreallife.com and see her music. And she's going to talk about her story. Anyways, all that to say, I love the work that she's doing. And when you hear her story and the beginning, the origins, and how it got there. So I just gave a little context to this, because I love that we're going to be having this conversation today. So, Sean, I'm going to throw it back to you to start the. Sean always starts our conversation.
I feel like where most people would ordinarily start is a big puzzle with many pieces. We usually will tell people, most heroes, part of being a hero is that you don't see yourself as a hero. That's almost a requirement. And a hero is usually anyone who's operating in their truest self, is so busy doing that they probably don't think that what they're doing is necessarily that remarkable. So the first thing is to let you know that you are a hero, and all heroes have superpowers, and one superpower comes from their origin. So tell us a bit about how who and where you come from physically and intellectually, literally, because all those things have to do with who we are in life, and then how we respond to either the diagnosis for one we're giving care to, or our own.
Cool. Thank you, guys. I appreciate all your kind words. And Brian, I'm so grateful that you stuck around to see the show, because that was a blast.
It was awesome.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of a rambler. So if I'm going too long, please feel free to cut me off or jump in with questions, because I will just go until you stop me.
We're the kings of ramble. So we're
I ramble on my TikTok, and I could just talk forever. It's one of my weird quirks. So please feel free to stop me if I'm going too long. So I'm originally from Michigan. I'm from a very small town. It's about 14,000 people. Almost everyone I grew up around. I grew up in a very conservative evangelical bubble. I was homeschooled. I grew up watching CBN every day on TV, which is very
Christian Broadcast Network.
Yes, every day.
Where in Michigan are you from? What's the name of the town?
It's called Traverse City. It's famous for cherries, and it's like a beautiful vacation town. So in the summertime, the population increases like crazy, because for 3 months of the year, it's paradise. It's like being in Maui. But then the other 9 months of the year, it's snow, it's freezing.
It's Midwest,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason that my parents settled down there is because there's a school nearby called Interlochen Center for the Arts. Okay, cool. So you've heard of it. It's kind of famous. Mm-hmm. So it is basically like if you are a high school age person and you are a very gifted artist and you want to go study somewhere very serious, that would be like one of the top tier schools that you could go to. And it's literally just in the middle of the woods, and it has some of the most incredible talented musicians and performers. Anything that's like a classical art form, they teach there. So any form of fine art. So I grew up around amazing musicians. My dad, he's the head of the voice department there. He's been there about 25 years. My mom is a harpist. And she's a teacher and she gigs and all that. And so they're both full-time in the classical world. A lot of their friends, I grew up in like orchestra pits during rehearsals, and jazz musicians always coming in and out of the house, and these incredible opera singers. Like I grew up around amazing musicians, which I'm forever grateful for. And as classical parents do, my parents put me in piano lessons when I was 5. That's what they all do. And I immediately started writing music. It was very natural for me, much more natural than learning other people's music. So I'd get in trouble in my lessons of just like, I'd go in and supposed to be learning Mozart or Bach or whatever, and I'd put my own spin on it. Like I'd say, I think they should have done this. And, you know, those teachers are very intense and they got really mad at me. It was great. Yeah. So the writing, the creative side of it was very natural for me. And naturally, I just picked up guitar and I was writing songs constantly, writing. The jump from being homeschooled to going to regular school was very traumatic for me. I think going from such an intense bubble, like I remember I went to public school for 1 year in second grade and I literally had the 10 Commandments taped up in my locker. Like that's how hardcore it was.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very intense. And then I was able to I was homeschooled for a while and we were in like very intense homeschool conservative world. And then I was thrown back into public school because of some major family trauma that happened. I wasn't able to stay at home anymore. So I had to go back to public school, and it was a culture shock for sure, being around other kids my own age. And now looking backwards, knowing that I was autistic, it obviously sheds a lot of light on the bullying. It's weird because I think I was a cute girl, but so maybe sometimes people didn't believe necessarily that I was bullied, but I was bullied quite a bit. Very insecure, really struggled quite a bit in school. And then I was writing songs to get out my feelings all the time because I had quite a bit of trauma at home as well with my family, just like a lot going on. And songwriting was my outlet. So I'd go home and I'd practice all day long and write my songs. And then I would save up babysitting money to go to the recording studio because my dad's school that he taught at, they had a recording studio that I could go to. I think it was like $60 an hour. So I'd go in and I'd record demos. And I was doing this for a long time. And just sort of, that was my special interest and my outlet. And my goal was like, I'm going to send these to record labels and get signed and be like Destiny's Child. You know, that was like always my dream. So, but every time I'd finish a demo, I'd be like, oh, I think I could do better. So this process was happening, and I just kept trying to top it. And then finally, I was like 14 or 15. My parents met a producer through our church. My parents planted a church with 10 other families, of course. So we met a producer through that church who was based in Chicago at this mega church called Willow Creek. And he was a phenomenal producer, wonderful man. I still talk to him to this day. I still love him. And I went in to have my first session with him, and I showed up with all these songs I had written, and I had notated out at what every instrument does because I'm from classical world, right? So I think like a composer. So I had composed every piece of what every instrument should do. And he was just like, what the F is like,
wow.
I curse like a sailor. So I'm really going to try to control my cursing. Yeah. So he was like,
we should put a disclaimer up.
Fair warning. I know. I'm like, I'm doing good so far. I'm catching it before it comes out. But yeah, so it was really funny. And I did that demo, and then a guy from Jive Records at the time got his hands on it. And then that started my journey in the music industry. And the way that happened was crazy, but it's kind of a long story. But yeah, I ended up going out to New York City when I was still in school, still a teenager. Started taking trips out there and working with some incredible producers and managers and stuff, and was in and out of so many different deals for many years, and so many ups and downs, so many times of starting over. I mean, there was days like where I would sing at the Staples Center, and then the next morning I'd be cleaning frat house toilets for my job, you know, just so many ups and downs. And every time like a deal fell apart, which probably happened like 10 times to me, I would be sort of back at zero because all my opportunities were depending on one person. And I think because I grew up in such a bubble and so autistic, you might think, oh, her parents are classical musicians. That's totally different than the music industry. Totally different. Yeah, they're not even close to each other as far as like everything. There's no business side to classical music really. So yeah, it was just like I was very susceptible to abusive people, partly because I grew up around a lot of abusive people, and partly because I am autistic. I didn't have like a very good nose. I didn't have a lot of people watching my back. I didn't have a lot of people checking in on me that I needed. I didn't have that. So I made all the mistakes. I worked with all the wrong people. I was highly susceptible to narcissistic, dangerous people. And it took me many years to realize that if I wanted to have any control over what happened to me and I wanted to make my dreams come true, I was going to have to manifest some money, because it seemed like all these people that were controlling me, like telling me how much I had to weigh and what color hair I could have and what I was allowed to sing and what I wasn't allowed to sing and all that stuff. Like I realized, okay, I want to be able to have my own vision, my own creativity. I want to sing the songs I write. Like, I don't want to have to be this product, because when you're really young and female, they just try to mold you like a Britney. No shade whatsoever to her, but I know she went through that too. And they just really like want you to be whatever their vision of you is. They don't even take you into account when they're thinking about that. And a lot of it's like, we're going to objectify her before she's even really old enough to understand what's going on. And, you know, it was just tough. So during that time, I just met so many other female artists who were going through similar things. And so many of them were being sexually assaulted by their producers, by executives at labels. They're being told they have to sleep with people to get opportunities or get signed. Just being taken advantage of in every way. And the same thing happened to me. And it was really tough. And I really toughened up, and I realized, okay, I have to make money, because everyone that had power had money. And I got really focused on figuring out how I was going to make money. And I started getting really serious about sort of speaking my life into existence instead of just receiving everything from everyone else all the time. I started speaking up for myself and saying, like, no, this is who I am. I believe that I am capable of running my own life. I believe that I'm worthy and I'm blessed and I should be treated appropriately. I believe that I can have a happy life. I believe I can heal from my trauma. I believe I can heal my body. I believe I can manifest money. I believe I'm worthy of receiving that. And the more I started speaking it, the more my life started to change. And at this point, I was maybe 10 years in, and I started making a lot of money through brands, through brand deals. And it wasn't like I had a lot of followers. It played out like a miracle, like it really did. It just came into my life, this huge opportunity to work with several brands, and they were paying so much money. It was stupid. And that has sustained me and allowed me to build out all my creative visions without having to sign my life away to a label or give up my creative freedom. And that has been amazing for several years now. I'm in a shift now where I have record labels coming to me instead of me coming to them. So it's been interesting, this weird period that I'm in. And then in January, I was diagnosed with autism, which really was interesting because it gives you a whole new perspective on basically everything that's ever happened to you. So,
right.
I want us to go into
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about that. I was just going to say, go ahead, Brian, go ahead.
Wait, just before that. So Em, all of those experiences you have channeled and you've actually put it into your music. And not only that, but you've actually built an entire world, universe around, you know, this evolution, right? Is that kind of how you would describe it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is actually kind of amazing. Shug, go ahead. Ask
I was just going to say, you know, several things. When you talked about, that was one of my aspirations for a very long time, which is being in the music industry and I went back and forth between being the person that's out in front versus having songs that are out there. And I completely relate to doing a demo and sticking your chest out a little bit. And then when you listen to it a couple of times, you're kind of deflated because you're like, not lack of confidence, but just like, that could be better. That could be better. And having perfectionism being your enemy. But you've come along and had the awakening that you do at I don't know if it's fair to say the right time, but you would almost have, prior to technology and the internet, no outlet whatsoever, especially if we go back to the years when, because once upon a time, record companies were run by music people. That began to gradually shift where they're run by complete business people that almost know nothing about music. Yes. And at this point, you know, you've got all these things at your disposal that you can really make your own. I think that's fantastic. So if you would tell us about then the diagnosis, like what does that mean? How did that come about? And the light that it probably shone for you.
Sure. So I just found myself throughout my entire life being rejected by so many people and really having quite pure intentions. Like I never went out of my way to hurt anyone or, cut anyone down. Like I would always try my best to fit into whatever mold I was supposed to fit into. And I could just never fit in any group. I was too worldly for the churchy people. I was too churchy for the normal people. That was at the earliest levels. And then in school, I was the homeschool girl, but I also, got some attention, but then also those kids didn't like me, and girls were very mean to me, and boys were very objectifying and disrespectful. And then in the music industry, I've never been cool. I'm not good at being cool. It's not my thing. So I just, I never was accepted into any group. And every time I would like join a label or production company or something, it was just like, I was always treated as other, and I always felt very other. I spent my whole life just feeling like an alien, like no one understands me.
Amazing.
Even from a very young age, like not even my parents, not my family, especially not my family, like just feeling like no one gets it. Yeah. I didn't have one person. And that's, I started having a very personal, close relationship with God that has, taken many turns and evolved over the years. But that's kind of what got me through, because I felt like that was the only place that I felt acceptance and love. And everywhere else I would try to turn, I was just kicked out. I didn't fit. And so I started to see, well, really it came from my community online. I just kept seeing more and more autistic women in my feed and being like, I really relate to what a lot of these women are saying on social media. And it was finally enough. And I had so many people in my comments on TikToks, because I would do like little rant videos on TikTok just for the engagement or whatever. And I had so many people saying like, you really seem like you might be autistic. And I was like, no. Yeah, other autistic women told me like, you should get checked out. So finally, I made an appointment with an expert. I had to wait like almost a year to get in because they're so oversaturated here in Los Angeles. And yeah, I ended up going in, and they said, it was literally in the first 4 minutes. He's like, I'm pretty sure you're autistic, but we'll do all the testing anyway. It's like, yeah. Damn it. And then afterwards, they send me like brief.
Isn't that crazy, by the way? I didn't mean to interrupt you, but isn't that crazy? Like, it's sort of like those that know, like they can see it right away. And you're like, I lived my entire life, and like in 4 minutes, you've diagnosed me.
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, I ended up staying for 2 hours, and he got all the information, but yeah, he pretty much knew right away. It was interesting too, because he sent me the brief afterwards of like everything that he observed. And it was so interesting, like reading what he observed about me from his viewpoint as a doctor. I was like, wow, this is so
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't get that. I mean, again, unless you're an adult and diagnosed, a lot of people don't get that. And sometimes parents, when the doctor diagnoses, they're in that whole, Charlie Brown wah wah wah, where they're not taking it all in. They don't even get all that. What a huge thing. And was it like mind blown, eye opening when he told you that?
Yes, it was nice. It felt mostly like validation of like, oh my gosh, I'm not crazy. Like, this experience in my life has been real in like so many areas that I always just thought maybe I'm just crazy, maybe it's all in my head. Maybe I'm just being a victim. Maybe I'm being a baby. And then it was just like, oh no, it's okay to afford myself extra support. I think that was the biggest, because I felt so guilty for needing support before. Like, why can't I just go to the grocery store without feeling like panicked, things like that. And now it's like, oh no, I know now. It's very comforting.
That's interesting.
Exactly.
And going and definitely we can continue to go on this, Sean, if you have a question about this, but I want to say you've created some amazing content. First of all, your music is incredible, and we definitely encourage anybody, go to eminreallife.com, and there's a whole story there. But you also talk about the movie Genesis that you've created, which was, well, I want to tell people, you tell people. So tell us about Genesis, because in this film project, you actually talk about your autism diagnosis a bit.
I do.
Talk about Genesis a little bit and how that all.
So Genesis, it's funny. I literally added in the part about the autism diagnosis right before we put it out, because the edit was done a year earlier. Yeah. And looking back on it in the film, I'll explain in a second, but I was learning to dance and I was having such a hard time learning to dance. And that's a huge part of autism because repeating certain movements is hard for us and we overanalyze, and the music's very loud, the lights are very loud. There's just like a lot to take in a dance class. And I was really struggled, and I knew I needed to dance. It was part of my vision. So it was interesting looking back on it of like, oh, that's why it's been so hard for me to dance over the years, is because of the autism. I just didn't know. I just thought, oh, I have no rhythm. I'm just bad at this. I have a bad memory, whatever it was. But yeah, Genesis I'm very proud of it. It's done. It's a live filmed show and a documentary about the making of the show. And the documentary also is about all of those women that I mentioned earlier who I've met, who have just been through so much. Like, so many of these women have been assaulted and just abused in so many different ways when they're just trying to do their job and make music and be successful. And I wanted to sort of showcase their stories and establish to people that there is a pattern of abuse that happens to women in entertainment. Because I think a lot of times, like, we hear one woman here or one woman there, and people think it's like a special instance, and then they can write it off as like, oh, that's not real, that just happened one time. But it's like, I wanted to show multiple women to establish, no, this is something that happens over and over and over every day for us.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people wonder, like, why a lot of female pop stars, they seem like these raging feminists, and they'll start off as these very wholesome, sweet girls, and then they turn into like whatever they turn into. And it's like, well, you don't know what they're dealing with behind the scenes that makes them become the way that we are. Like, I think the amount of misogyny that you experience on a daily basis in music is just like so ridiculous that it would turn even the most conservative woman into someone who has a lot to say on the topic, for sure.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
And you also talked about the making of your live show, and how, I mean, you kind of take the audience through those experiences, like, people talking down to you, not giving you credit, so ripping you off, a lot of these things, which you're just trying to, make. By the way, you paid for it out of your own pocket, and you're making your own show, and you still can't get people to, to support your efforts, which I think a lot of people in the creative space, at some point, they just throw up their hands like, I don't get the support. Why am I doing this? I'm banging my head against the wall. And you take us through that whole process, which is amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really tough. It feels like pushing a boulder up a hill a lot. And a lot of times you end up getting thrown back to the bottom of the hill and having to start over. And that happens again and again. And I've just learned to accept, like, anything important, I'm probably going to have to do 3 times at a minimum.
That's huge, though. That's huge.
Yeah, it's tough, because otherwise you just live in a state of perpetual frustration. And I think you just have to learn to become so resilient to every door slamming in your face and getting this close 20 times and knowing, like, okay, I'm going to try for 21, and being okay with that. It's a lot of rejection. It's very tough. But if you have a vision, for me, like, my vision is so strong that the only thing worse than doing it would be not doing it, if that makes sense. It would just be like, it would harass me until I make it. That's how I feel about creative stuff. It just, the idea will bother me until it manifests. It's really strange.
You have to get it out. Yeah.
Yes. It's like being pregnant.
Yeah.
That's how it feels. I mean, I've never been pregnant, but I imagine that that's what it's like. It's just like, get this thing out of me. That's kind of how it feels. Yeah.
And I think there's several levels to that, because I can relate to the idea of, there's an idea that's in me that won't let me sleep, and getting it out on paper or, in a virtual sense, whether you type it up, whatever have you. It's another thing to be able to see it through to fruition and actually be driven to bring it to light for the world. And the reason why, one of the greatest examples of the fact that most people struggle with that, and I think that's why there are more people that would like to be successful, especially in a creative space, than there are those that actually are, is, when they say that the graveyards are filled with more great songs and movies and anything than any place else, because most people die with their music, literally and figuratively, still in them. So for you to be as driven as you are to get that out and take control of it, really give yourself credit, because the music business is not something that's necessarily taught. That's why you have stories of these fantastic geniuses and wizards and all this kind of stuff from a creative standpoint that have nothing to show for what they've produced and created.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I think the amazing thing about it is, so you write your own music. First of all, you write your own lyrics, write your own music. You play every instrument. Now we're going to add to it film producer, film director, in some cases, cameraman, best boy, everything it takes, because you literally production designer, costumer, like you really design everything about your life, your presence when it comes to your creativity and your music, right? There's almost nothing you don't do.
Yeah, I think it's just, I don't know if it's an autism thing. I have like a Kanye syndrome where I just feel like I could do anything. And it's just more of a matter of where do I want to put my energy, because I believe that like with work ethic, you can really learn anything other than like maybe like basketball where you have to be tall or something. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think sometimes it's not good because I end up doing too much and I exhaust myself for sure a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But as an independent artist, it saves me a ton of money to be able to pick up a new skill, because all I have to do is be interested in it. And then I'll get into that thing for a very intense short period of time. And I think that's a gift of autism, is like the hyper focus. I don't know if that's more ADHD or autism. I have both. But if I'm interested in something, I can pick it up quickly, if that makes sense.
I was going to ask based on that. So do you play by ear or do you read?
Well, I was raised with classical music, so everything was sight reading and all that was very integral to my growth as a young musician. But now I mostly play by ear, and I work with many other producers who have ideas when I come in. So a lot of times it's just building off what they've done. But I think the theory side that helps me the most is the jazz side, because I think knowing progressions and ways to spice them up and stuff like that is the most helpful thing in the world as a songwriter.
Right, definitely. That obviously helps when it comes to things like progressions and chord structure too, obviously.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Sean, are you
That's
able
fantastic.
to show a clip? I know you were looking to try to grab and
Yeah,
share.
I'll get that together from the site. Go ahead, continue. Yeah.
Okay. Because the other thing I was going to say, which I love him, is that you used your social media to become, a brand partner. You made a lot of money, and then you took all that money and you put it into all the stuff that you're doing. Executive producer, that's another title. We have the list of your credits is pretty long, right? Because you, in essence, any barrier that exists for people, you just eliminated. Would you say? With maybe one or two exceptions of things we still have to accomplish, but
yes, I think creatively, if you have money and you have enough drive, you can get a lot done.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people maybe have limited thinking, and that slows them down, of like believing they can't create money, believing that it can't come to them. I'm very into mind hacking and like understanding mindset and reprogramming my mindset and things like that, removing limits. I'm constantly thinking like, where am I limited in my thinking? Why do I think that that's not possible for me? And how do I deconstruct that and believe that it is? Because I really think you can't manifest or receive anything that you don't believe is possible. So a lot of times we block ourselves because we just assume that for us. And it's like, well, why do we think that way? And I just try to remember how infinite and large the whole universe is and how much abundance there is. And like, I think a lot of times I get into a scarcity mindset. So I don't know if this is even your question. I'm sorry, I went on a little.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful answer.
It's right there. It's right there. Yeah, you have to believe it to see it, but people usually say it the other way around. And we don't have to believe everything that we think, and probably shouldn't. We control that. But speaking of, what you think and see and and everything, let's take a quick look, if we will, here at one of your videos. I mean, if you guys can see.
Yeah, that's my favorite. I mean, I've told her I've been singing this song in my head 5 months now. I love this song.
Mom, I'm here. haven't seen this in so long.
Pretty baby, you were young, wild, and crazy until your vision went and got hazy. We're looking for your love in dark places. Why? 'Cause life isn't like the movies, wasn't what you wanted it to be. So you started looking for heaven in a pit. Oh, ooh, tell me who in your mind told you to try it. What in your life made you believe it? She's crying, la 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 la, screaming, na 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 na. She needs freedom, freedom. Don't get lying here, no freedom, freedom.
I love that hook. Love that.
Thank
That's
you.
one that keeps going through my head.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that song. It's one of my favorites.
That is I think it's almost bizarre. I think, okay, it happens because there are a lot of talented people that put product out that nobody's going to really hear from, unfortunately, and some who don't even put the product out. But the hook in that song in particular it's such a strong hook that it you know, melodically it really should be, you know, any and every place there. It's really something else. What stood out to me is the hook and the hook itself and the melody within it, but then the harmonizing also.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great. And by the way, there's a whole story to that music video, which is worth watching. So for people to, you know, go to eminreallife.com, EMM in real life, all one word, inreallife.com for those that are listening. And that's the first, that's called Freedom. And it's beautiful. And then all of the music videos that are on that site have that. There's something, you know, that hooks you in every one of those songs. And I think it's so fantastic. And again, like I said, I've been singing those since November. There was one shot when you were dancing, and then by the way, you put this into your Genesis video as well, where you're singing and you stand on a stool and bend over and play the piano from a height that I'm like, when I saw that on stage, I was like, how the hell are you doing that? How are you? And it really shows like how prolific you are in your instrument playing as well. Like that's amazing.
Thank
really,
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun. I just look at it and think, oh, Gaga does so much more with her piano playing. But I aspire to learn more and more every day. So I'm always trying to like keep a student mentality.
Yeah.
This is just really just truth, but I think that sounds better than her.
Huh?
I think that sounds better than her.
Oh, that's very sweet.
From a vocal standpoint. And I think because it's interesting, I think just as human beings, one of the greatest, I would say getting older is a superpower, because while you might lose some kind of sight, if you're paying attention, your vision is clear, because sight is not to be confused with vision. And one of the things that is amazing is that music, art itself is, you know, just like beauty in the eye of the beholder. And what people will say is so-and-so is better. This is better than that. It's all about how you receive it. And I just receive that in a way that gets to me more than she does vocally. That sounds so kind of weird to sit here and say maybe, but it's just,
I think it's like different artists are made for different humans, and like
exactly
people were meant to touch and reach. And I'm so grateful for her, because she's inspired me in many ways, but so have so many other amazing artists. And I'm grateful that we all sort of have our own calling. Like there are some artists, I believe, who are meant to unite people, like an Ed Sheeran. He makes everyone come together at the concert and put up their lighters and feel like one. And then there's artists like Madonna, who exists to point out flaws in systems and create division that produces hopefully evolution. And you know, there's different types of artists that exist for different reasons. So I'm grateful in any way, shape, or form to be compared to her. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's true as it just in life period, because we get so caught up, especially a lot of the things, especially in this country, that have us so divisive. I always say that there's a short list of things for which absolutes apply. You know, you should never be mean to people. You should treat people. There's just certain things that are obvious. Outside of that, when we speak in absolutes of this is the best and this is the only way, you know, we're here to connect with each other, but no one individual, no matter who they are, is going to connect with any and everyone. So, you know, outside of the basic human language, not everybody's speaking your language. And for you to lay that out as you did, that's probably one of the most valuable things that we'll hear here today, because there's a lot of people that that don't quote unquote get that. You know, I saw a post I shared with Brian. We were talking about this. A gentleman that's on the spectrum has written I think maybe 3 books, has a bunch of followers, and he talked about just not being able to keep up with Autism Awareness Month, and he's not reaching as many people, and sometimes he feels like just giving up. And I thought, that's so crazy. But then I thought, I feel the same way, even though it might not be as extreme. And here he is with all these accomplishments. You know, we speak what we speak, sing what we sing, and we don't control who it touches, and, you know, except where we are. I love that.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, and again, I think that, and when people see and hear that the extreme talent, like, again, when I say 4 octaves, for people to know, like, people talk about Mariah Carey hitting that high note, and I think your high notes are so pure and absolutely amazing. And the other thing I want to talk about this, because first of all, the little bit of, and you can talk about the story about freedom, but really it was, you know, lessons in a way how we are made up from, you know, nature versus nurture, right, and how the influence of our parents have on us. But you conquer things like, again, abuse, anxiety, relationships that are, you know, that you break out of. Like you deal with a lot of issues that I think a lot of people can relate to in your music, and I think that you give people, you know, something to hold on to. I'm telling you, the anxiety. I sent that song to my daughter because she deals with, among the other things that she has to deal with with her disability, anxiety is one of those that can be crippling. And so that, you know, again, an outlet for folks. And so I love the fact that you do that. And the last thing I'll say, and then you can comment on this too, but you stand for empowering women, which is something that Sean and I both support wholly. And it really is you put it right out there as this is the stuff that we deal with, and this has got to change. And I love that, because it's taken. We often we have guests on our show who will take their diagnosis or their child's diagnosis, and then they take what they're learning from that and they go and serve the community, the special needs community. Right? They take some people do without that, but a lot of people take their, you know, their issue and they go and they serve the community. You're doing that as well. You're serving a much greater community here. This was even before diagnosis. The folks of creatives, women, young girls, really, for me, and again, this is more being just a fanboy. I love that. And again, from a girl dad perspective, it means so much that my kids can look up to people such as yourselves, and you are, you know, again, you're about to become well known, my hope. So even in your early stages, you're doing all these things that serve others, and I'm just, kudos to you. I think it's fantastic.
Thank you. It's funny, I kind of go back and forth about this because I hire a lot of people, which I think is important, like hiring people in creative fields, and I justify a lot of the this money that I spend on art by, okay, well, I got to hire all these people, so I don't need to feel bad about it. But if I'm able to like make the thing that I want to make, that's a win. I get to hire other creatives who maybe wouldn't be getting jobs from bigger artists. That's a win. And if the art itself serves the community as a whole, that's a triple win for me. So that's always the goal. I don't think I'd be comfortable making stuff that I felt like didn't have a greater purpose. And maybe that's an autism thing. I just wouldn't feel comfortable. I feel like it would be financially irresponsible of me if it didn't have a greater purpose. It just becomes very self-serving. And I think that that's a little bit weird, but that is kind of how I think about things.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. You know, I always say that it's, you know, the way that we see other people is one thing. The way that we see the world is but another thing. But the way that we see ourselves, it really truly is everything. And so if you are able to affect the way that any group that is, you know, marginalized, in this case, you could be talking about people in the spectrum, women, artists in general, if you're able to affect the way that they see themselves, anything that encourages people to clean their mirrors so they get more of an honest look at themselves, anything that reminds people, wait a minute, I'm not alone, is one, immeasurable in value. And I think I have a higher consciousness than most people in terms of thinking about what I think about, thinking about my surroundings and stuff, maybe even to a fault. And despite that, I am constantly reminded of things or encounter things that remind me that I'm closer to forgetting that I may not be alone in my thought, my despair, or whatever it is I might be thinking or going through, especially if you're not the type of person that hangs your head low and is just, you know, got your head in your hands and not sure where to go. So what you give, generally speaking, and in you in particular, is so much more valuable and needed than you might think. But when you're just doing you and you're going about your business, it's easy to overlook that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's so true. And I feel like for men, especially because of the masculinity standards, it's like, it's got to be so hard. And there's more women that are willing to speak out about mental health than men, and about assault than men. And it's so common among men. And even like with the Diddy case that we're seeing and everything, like how many young men have been abused in Hollywood as well. Like, I just think, I feel for you guys that you aren't necessarily given like the same empathy that sometimes women are able to give each other. Like, I can go to coffee with one of my female friends and we can cry and talk about it. And I feel like men, it's harder for you guys to find those people you could do that with, you know?
Yeah, it's funny you say that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's funny you said that. That's the very reason why we created a men's support group for. Well, first we started seeing this is a support group for dads, and then we realized, well, this is a support group for men who are caregivers, period. Because the challenges that come with caregiving, you know, anything that affects the general population affects us 10 times more. And then, as you mentioned, you know, men are kind of taught to be silent, taught to be fixers, taught to not even go, you know what, I'm afraid, or what do I do about that? I'm not sure. So it's very well needed. And as a result of that, we created a men's group for that purpose, which is known as the Den. We'll put the link up where people can, you know, register. It's free. We meet every other Sunday.
That's amazing.
But again, consciousness always has to be raised, because we created this group, and every now and then, you know, we'll have one of the calls, and I'm like, okay, we're doing this to help men, but like, who is this really for? I feel like I was on somebody else's call because gosh knows I needed it that given day. Yeah. And I didn't get up feeling desperate or something. So there's something of immeasurable value when you get something and appreciate it so much that you didn't even realize that you needed it until you got it.
Right. It's those safe spaces of connection. I think even just creating the space will always bring out things. And it's like, there's no spaces for that really. So that's so amazing. And I applaud you guys. That's awesome that you did that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
We Sean and I are unique in that we both will cry publicly. Like we cry at everything. So it's you know, we're not afraid. And we've also probably hit that age where we don't really care if anybody says anything about it.
Yeah.
So
what are you going to
say? Right. We could go to lunch and cry as well. So
good.
But we're somewhat evolved, I would say. At least I hope so.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. That takes a lot of work to get to that point.
Yeah. And really realizing that actually brings us all closer to everybody, you know, when you can actually, because that means you're being raw, vulnerable, authentic. And I think that at the end of the day is really what it's all about, right? Just being authentic with one another.
Mhm.
I could talk to you about this in your career and all this forever and ever and ever, and yet the hour's almost up already, if you can believe.
Yeah.
So we want to talk to you about. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to throw it to Sean to ask you the question that we've talked about before, because I like to set it up. But Sean, go ahead, ask him your question.
Well, this is the portion of the show where we ask the following. Our ability to change the world in any way, great or small, is based on our ability or our willingness to change ourselves. So with that said, give us just one example of a thought or a belief that you once thought to be true, but no longer believe to be true.
I think for me, this is a big question. I have gone through a huge deconstruction journey with my faith. Like I said, I was raised very, very conservative, and a lot of those frameworks stopped working for me when I got into a bigger bubble of the world. And I started meeting people that didn't look like me and didn't think like me. And I had to really ask a lot of the big questions. And I had to really say, like, do I really believe that every person who wasn't born into my religion is going to burn in hell? And like all these like huge questions that really are taboo to ask in the culture that I grew up in, because you're just immediately like rejected for even bringing that up, because it makes people so uncomfortable. And I'm grateful for autism, because I have sort of the experience with rejection that I'm willing to ask the things that might risk me being rejected. And I have faced a lot of rejection for asking those big questions. And so I'd say like the biggest thing I was willing to unlearn was the frameworks that I was brought up with, and allowing myself to believe that love is much more expansive than the boundaries that we try to put on it. I think that that's the area where I've grown the most personally. And that's something that, people probably can notice that through my work. I obviously don't align with a lot of the same beliefs that I had growing up, but I do think that's like a huge area of growth for me. I hope
That's fantastic.
I know that's not very specific, but it is.
No, that's it. That's very specific. That's very specific. And I just think the question is always worth people asking themselves, is there anything that I feel that way about? And if the answer is no, just think about it some, because it just means that if you have the same beliefs aside from fundamentals that you've always had, it means you're not, there's a chance you might not be growing. And, it'd be a shame to be here on this planet and have the gift of life and not continue to grow and evolve, one's thinking. We would make no progress if we never took that approach.
Yeah, and it's scary. Like, it's scary asking questions and rethinking your mental patterns, and, maybe thinking in a way that's different from everyone around you, and being willing to just be like, I'm committed to the truth and nothing else. I just want to find the truth. And if the truth leads me right back to where I am now, then great. But it's taking the risk to find it, I think, is so important as a human.
Exactly.
And a lot of people will go on their evolutionary journey in private, right? In their own mind sometimes, or in their own, in their own environment, and sometimes they don't even tell anybody that they're doing it, and sometimes they do it unconsciously. The thing that I admire so much about you is that you actually have been going through this evolutionary journey, and you're doing it out in the open. You're doing it publicly. People get to watch your evolution. And I think that is a gift, whether you see it that way or not. I think that it is truly a gift for us to watch. Honestly, only God and the angels watch people evolve to some degree, and for us as humans, mere humans, to be able to watch somebody go through this evolutionary process, it really is, it's magical. And so I just want you to know that I think that you're amazing. And I want as many people as possible to see you, hear your stuff, get a chance to watch your program. By the way, people can watch Genesis and really the story behind the story, if you will, M in Real Life, EMM in reallife.com, put up on the screen there as well. Go to the site, support this amazing artist, folks. She's really doing something, and we're really we're catching her on the upswing. But I'm telling you, it's really fascinating to watch. And I thank you so much for doing this and for coming on the show with us, and talking about it. It really is it's awesome for us.
Thank you, guys. Can I add one thing? I don't think I've updated my website. So the most up-to-date links and everything is going to be in the link tree in my social media. So if you want to check that out, it's at EMM in real life.
There you go. We'll put it up on the screen as well. So yeah, go to Instagram, TikTok, go to her link tree, M in real life, and see all of her updated stuff. So awesome. So as we wrap up, and we're getting close to our time, I'm just gonna say, first of all, it's a pleasure. We're gonna work on a few things, and I know Sean has something he wants to talk to you about after we sign off here as well. So grateful again to you. And by the way, we talked about you during the Yes I Can Unity board meeting recently, because I was bragging that you were going to be on the show, and we have some music folks there that are seeing your stuff as well. So
Thank you.
yeah, glad to have you on this. And I'll just say, as we wrap up, I would say empathy and love. Empathy and love is always top of mind. And as I froze, looks like my screen froze here. There we go. Empathy and love is you see somebody's situation, be empathetic. You don't know what they're going through. Have some empathy for what they're dealing with. Ask them questions, and look at the world through lenses of love. The world is just a better place. Love is the answer to everything. I want to thank everybody who caught us live on Facebook and made comments. And for those catching us after the fact on YouTube, please hit like and subscribe. And for everybody listening on WSTX AM radio and on podcast outlets, thanks for making us part of your listening day, and for getting a chance to get a glimpse of Freedom by M. I promise you will love that. That'll be a earworm that sticks with you forever. So I love that song. And I'm going to throw over to Sean to finish this up. And Sean, you can talk about all the other.
I got it.
That I missed.
I want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen to us. And again, thank you so much for your time, M. If you're listening to us live on Facebook, this episode will be available in the next 24 to 48 hours on our YouTube channel, as well as wherever you may get podcasts. Included in the show notes will be the link for our men's group known as The Den. We meet every other Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific via Zoom. And we also want to thank Billy Footwear, who is a fantastic company making adaptive footwear for those with challenges. They're a fantastic company. If you use the link that is on the screen and in the show notes as well, you get 10% off of your purchase. And remember that questions are more powerful than statements. Let's try and be a little more childlike and less childish. And remember that we all need the same thing. Everybody's looking for to be seen, to be heard, and to know that they matter. And I want to thank Sean Hall in Hawaii, who takes care of all our graphics and everything. And to any and everyone within the sound of my voice, thank you so much, and we love you.
Thank you, Em.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate everything you stand for, and I'm honored to get to chat with you.
Awesome. Honor's ours too. Thank you. Bye, everybody. We'll be back next week. Another new episode of Just Two Dads.